Death Valley National Park is known for its extremes. It's the hottest place in North America, has the lowest elevation, but it's also the extremes of human nature, where we've seen in 1849 a group of immigrants get lost in the valley and get saved by the heroicism of two young men. On the opposite extreme is probably the most heinous murders of the 20th century. Today I'm going to tell the story about my brother Dave, who in 1968 came to Death Valley and ran into Charlie Manson and his family. The best way for me to share the story is to follow the journey my brother took in December of 1968. Let's go to Death Valley. This is Panamint Valley. The story begins in the ghost town of Ballarat. So we are now in the ghost town of Ballarat, which at one time I think had something like 1,500 people lived here, all mining in the area. So this is where my brother met Ballarat Bob, and I will let you hear him in his own words. And across the street here is the jail where my brother had stored his food for the next time he came back. But the next time he came back, Manson and his family had eaten all the food.
I'm one of those weird guys that likes to go out in the desert by myself. So I bought myself a Honda Trail 90. Fabulous bike for a guy who wants to be in the desert. Good gas mileage. So I went to the most rugged spot I knew of, which was Death Valley. And I figured, boy, I'm going to find some trails that really stress this thing out. So I just took off on a bunch of trips. And the first guy I met up there was really weird. He went by the name Ballarat Bob. Ballarat's an old ghost town in Panamint Valley. It's still there. The people running at that time had the name of Manuel. And they took me in. I don't know why they took me in. I was just an 18-year-old guy in college. So, but what I do is use that area as a base camp. During the day, I would ride all these canyons in the Panamint Valley, which is now in Death Valley National Park. It used to be Death Valley National Monument. I ran into a guy on one of those lonely trips. You know, when you're out there camping by yourself, if anybody walks up, immediately there's a conversation. Mm-hmm. Okay, this guy was Ballarat Bob, and amongst the other things he did and he said, and I know most of it was hot air, but he said, you know, there's a hippie group living up Goulder Wash, and you're just the right age to fit in with all the gals.
The whole reason that Manson was caught up here is because they torched a brand new dozer that the Park Service had purchased. And these rangers, they were amazing. The pursuit of the family and who had torched their brand new vehicle is really what brought them down, because when they got caught, they just, they thought these guys were just doing stuff like that. But in fact, it turned out they were able to connect the family to the murders back in LA. Now we're going to take this 16-mile dirt road south through Panamint Valley and see if we can find a spot to camp tonight before we take our electric bikes up to Barker Ranch. Well, it's a little unorthodox, but the road was getting much worse. So we decided just to pull off. We found this little pull out here. So we're just going to camp right here for the night. We found a level enough spot, and we'll pick up the trail tomorrow. You hear all that creaking?
I thought it was my bones.
is as far as we can go with our rig, which is only two-wheel drive, but it did really well coming up this very steep road. And here we are at the entrance to Goler Wash. But in 1968, my brother was a freshman in college, and I was a freshman in high school. And he would have been driving my dad's hand-me-down car, which was a 1965 Mustang. This is a steep canyon. We may have to push our bikes up a lot of the ways, but we'll be able to ride them down. Right where this nice little stream is coming down, we run into the road that takes you to Barker Ranch. So this is where we're going to split off, go up to Barker Ranch. This road goes up to Mingle Pass, which is where my brother ran into Tex Watson on a horse.
On one of my earlier trips, I bumped into Tex Watson on a horse, and it was an eerie experience because here we are out in the middle of nowhere and you haven't seen anybody for hours. Wouldn't you expect someone to come up, and I turn off my engine and start talking to him nicely and asking him about stuff? Wouldn't you expect him to also talk back? He never did. The whole 3 or 4 minutes I tried to get a conversation going. All he did is stare at me, stare. And there was a 6-shooter revolver on his belt, and I thought to myself, I could see it there in the corner of my eyes, the way he was, his body language was not good. I didn't like it. So I said, well, hey, you know, it was good to see you. Hope to see you again. And I started the engine. It was quick, and I gave it full throttle, and I was out of there as fast as I would go, leaning forward, because I thought for a minute there he was going to shoot me.
We're like 3/4 of a mile away, but we can't figure out the route. Oh well. I'm relieved because we took a wrong turn and now we found it. Barker Ranch, that away. Because we would have run out of battery power. Somebody had a bad day. It says broken axle will return. Oh, it happened on the 28th, so that was 2 days ago. What a bummer. He needs to call Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Old man is walking.
Down goes Frazier. You okay?
I hurt a little bit.
What happened?
I'm 68 years old is what happened.
Oh man, that crept up on you over 67 years, didn't it?
It did. We are off course again. There's just not enough signage back here, so... And I dropped my tripod by a crash back there, so we gotta go back and get it. Found it. This is the 4th road now we're gonna try, because I think this is actually the one. It's as close to where we are as I can get, and we want to be up there, but there's no sign or anything. So we're gonna find out. That road is actually the one to Mingle Pass.
Ballarat Bob said, do not go up there by yourself. You wait for me. And so we had an agreement. We'd wait at the T in the road, and I waited there till here comes Ballarat Bob with his burro. Yeah, he was the last of the burro prospectors up there. That's true.
Oh, wow.
I was carrying a bunch of his rations, and he was carrying a bunch of stuff in his burro. And we arrived at the T. We came into the camp, and I do remember a big, when they first saw us, there's a big scurry of running all around.
I think we finally made it, and there's even a plaque. So there you go.
And it became famous with
Oh, yeah, it's eligible for the listing on the National Register of Historic Places.
And talking, the first guy that came out was a guy, and then right after him was Charlie Manson.
Yeah.
He had a .22 rifle with him. and distinctively. Also, he had a long knife. The first thing he did, the rifle was over his shoulder, the knife was here. When they came up and they exchanged a few pleasant remarks, then Charlie jumped at Ballarat Bob and drew his knife and stopped just before his neck. And then started laughing. He started laughing. He said, I could easily have killed you, Charlie. I mean, Ballarat. I could have done that. He said, well, I'm fixing to kill you right now. If you do that again, you are dead.
Wow.
That's the exchange I had. And then everything got back, laughing and the joking. And then they introduced me, and Charlie said, what do you do? Look at that motorcycle you have. You know, I like that motorcycle. I'd like to have that motorcycle. Tell you what, I'll trade that motorcycle for this bus. But he said, you got to know this. The yellow bus has about 22 long rifle bullets through its radiator right now. You won't get very far. So it's yours, but you can't run it. You won't be able to run it. I said, I think I'll keep my Honda 90. So I was really kind of leery of him at this point. Then he invited me into the house, didn't give us any food. He introduced us to the family. He was obviously a coercive leader, even though you didn't see any coercion going on. He had a manuscript with him. It was in a folder and about the size of this thing. And he said, I need to get this to Los Angeles. So he said, would you take me to LA? And what is the guy going to say? He's outnumbered by, 20 to 1. Yeah, of course, I'd love to. He said, I can take one other person with me. So he said, who wants to go? All the hands went up. He sang the song to me over there at the Barker Ranch, and it was the most nasty song I've ever heard. It was not particularly bad in language. It just was horrible.
Charlie Manson was actually captured, I think, the second day, because the first day they captured a bunch of the family members, and then they came back again, and that's when they captured Charlie. But he was hiding in a cupboard in the bathroom, and I think we found the bathroom. Let me take you there. Tiny, tiny bathroom. Little tiny. I'm guessing it was something like that. I think that is a toilet thing. And he was probably captured in that corner.
I don't remember the name of the gal that went with us. And I can't even wouldn't recognize her in a picture. But I would say she's about 17 years old, obviously a runaway. She told me when we were driving down that her father sends her money on a regular basis. 3 of us. I rode the motorcycle down to where the car was parked at the bottom of Kohler Wash, right on the main highway. It was not a highway, it's a dirt road, really bumpy when it gets flooded out. I dropped him off at the Spawn Ranch, and my excuse for not staying is that I have to go and take a test tomorrow. So I said, I'm going to come back. This is a white lie. This is the only way I can get away. They were all listening, looking at me. Let me finish my exam and I'll be back next weekend. And they said, okay, we'll allow that. Well, I never came back.
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks, Dave.